Hey everyone, this is Owen here from Urban Cyclist in downtown Toronto, bringing you another bike comparison. Today we're looking at two of the top e-cargo bikes available out there, the Riese Müller Load4 75 and the Tern GSD. These two model families are class leading in both the compact and general e-cargo categories, and we often have customers making this comparison, so we thought we should see how they really stack up. As cycling families start doing their research, it can get really murky as you decide what direction to head in. One major decision is often to go with a front-loading or a rear-loading cargo bike. Today we're going to help you by comparing one super popular front loader, the Riese Müller Load4 75, and one rear loader, the Tern GSD. Now before you get to choosing sides, keep in mind that we are a bike shop that sells bikes from both Riese Müller and bikes from Tern. We firmly believe that both of these bikes are best-in-class e-cargo bikes available on the market today, which is exactly why we stock both. We're here comparing them today to help you take a look at the differences between riding styles to help you understand why you might be interested in one over the other and how they can fit into your family's life. So before we get into the details, let's talk about some of the broad terms and categories of cargo bikes in this case. These are both e-cargo or electric cargo bikes, and both are pedelec, short for pedal electric bicycle. A pedelec does not use a throttle to help keep you moving, but instead actually uses a torque sensor located in the cranks to multiply your pedal power to give you pedaling assistance. So legally in Toronto, that assistance can only actually help you up to 32 kilometers an hour. Often the conversation about traveling by bike versus traveling in a car in a city is centered around going too far or carrying too much stuff. And both of these e-cargo bikes enter the conversation as great solutions for anyone wanting to do more by bike. E-cargo bikes push back against the idea that something is too far for someone at any level of fitness or ability by giving you pedaling assistance. They push back against the idea that it's not possible to carry something by bike by giving you a larger loading platform and frame capacity for heavy hauling. This is one of the reasons why people get so passionate about cargo bikes. They flip the script entirely on what is actually possible to do by bike and open up the door for endless possibilities for both fun and utility. These bikes are both really strong contenders if you're trying to go fully car-free or if you just want to reduce your car usage day to day. And most importantly, it will save time while doing it. First up, we're going to take a look at the differences in geometry. The Tern GSD is a long-tail cargo bike, and it can also be categorized as a compact cargo bike since it uses a small 20-inch wheel platform and has a relatively small overall footprint. It's hardly larger than a typical bike in fact, and has a much lower center of gravity. Meanwhile, the Riese Müller Load4 75 is a front-loading cargo bike, also often colloquially called a bakfiets, a term originating from the Netherlands referring to both bikes and trikes with a front cargo box. Often we simply call these front loaders or front loading cargo bikes, but this design was originally exclusively just for cargo, but is now an increasingly popular application is for families with kids. Both the GSD and the Load4 75 are very well suited to carrying kids, but of course these are also fantastic if you just want to carry more stuff by bike. As you start looking to either of these bikes, you'll immediately notice they've both got countless customization options. You can customize all sorts of features in these build kits, and you have a ton of accessories available for each bike. The number of combinations can seem completely endless. So to help you decide on what options are best for you, we're going to first take a look at the frames themselves. We're going to be going over some of the features that are consistent across the lineups and each models. Both the GSD and the Load4 75 are constructed with aluminum frames to help keep weight down along with maintaining rigidity to handle heavy loads. The added stiffness of this material is balanced by large volume tires in addition to various suspension features on both models. So many people will think generally of suspension as purely a comfort feature, and this is definitely true as suspension does smooth out your riding experience, but that's only half the story. Suspension is more importantly keeping your wheels in contact with the ground for increased safety and control and offers much better braking response. The first generation of the GSD actually had no suspension on it, and the current generation only actually has a suspension fork. You can opt for an upgrade for different models, some which come standard with a Cane Creek Thudbuster C-post like you see here to help smooth out vibrations up into the saddle of the rider. The Riese Müller Load4 75 takes comfort a step further by not only having a suspension fork, but also adds suspension into the frame of the bike, further smoothing out the ride and enhancing control for the rider and the comfort for their passengers. What's more, the Load4 has an optional upgrade to include e-bike ABS 2.0 from Bosch, providing an anti-lock braking system, just like you'd see on a car or a modern motorbike, to give you improved braking response in even the worst conditions, taking rider and passenger safety a step above and beyond. Now, suspension seems like it's all sunshine and lollipops. Why doesn't every bike have it? If it's so much better for comfort and safety, shouldn't every rider want the benefits of suspension? And not necessarily. Suspension does add some complexity and some weight, although the weight difference when you're on a pedal-assisted cargo bike is obviously a little negligible. On top of that, any moving parts on a bicycle do require regular maintenance and servicing, so having more moving parts, like suspension systems, will add a bit of cost and service cost and upkeep to your bike, which is always good to budget for. And in my opinion, the ride quality and performance benefits you'll get with suspension systems like this, it's a no-brainer to account for it. But of course, if you are trying to keep costs down, especially ongoing costs in the long run, this might not be the perfect fit for you. Another important consideration is if you ride in the winter here in Toronto, or anywhere else that loves to aggressively salt the roads, more maintenance and cleaning is going to be necessary if you want to keep riding for all 4 seasons. Cars do get rust-inhibiting chemical undercoatings and treatments to try to keep them in one piece and prevent damage, and similarly, your bike will need a little more TLC and to keep them in tip-top shape for years to come, particularly if you ride through the winter. Both the Tern GSD and the Riese Müller Load4 use a Bosch mid-drive pedal assist system, although the Load4 also comes with the newly released Bosch Smart system. Both systems are powered by the Cargo line motor, which is what really counts. Both bikes have electronic configurations that use either a single or a dual battery to extend your riding time with a double battery configuration. The GSD is available in a few configurations with 400 or 500 watt-hour configurations or 900 and 1000 watt-hour configurations. The former configurations use a single battery and the latter use a dual battery setup. These vary between GSD models within the family, so you may want to take note if you're making a purchase. As for the Load4 this bike has the option for a single power pack frame battery with a 725 watt-hour of power or a dual battery for 1450 watt-hours. So both systems offer obviously a very impressive battery capacity, but we won't be actually dwelling on the specific mileage as battery life will be affected by many factors, most notably how much cargo you're actually carrying and what type of terrain you're traveling on, and other factors like wind and elevation. And of course, when a bike is maxing out its cargo capacity and continually going up and down hills, the battery life and mileage will vary substantially when compared to an unloaded bike traveling on relatively flat ground. For folks looking to push the upper limits of these bikes, you'll want to take note here. Max gross vehicle weight is a very important factor. So first off, what is max gross vehicle weight? This is usually presented by brands using one number, as though you had a big scale and we're starting off with the weight of the bike itself, all the accessories you've put on it, the weight of the rider, and the weight of the passengers, and of course, all additional cargo, to arrive at the maximum possible weight the bike could safely carry. Most brands will have specifics about max rider weight, max rack load, or load area capacity for that matter, to account for where the bike is designed to carry the load. So weight should be logically spread out and the limits of specific areas of the bike should also be followed. Generally speaking, it's a good rule of thumb to make sure that the weight of all your cargo combined adds up to less than 70 to 80% of your own body weight, so you can stay in control of your bike. It can be dangerous to handle an overloaded bike, particularly if it exceeds your own weight. Although they look very different, you might be surprised to learn that the Riese Müller Load4 and the Tern GSD actually have the same max gross vehicle weight, but that doesn't actually mean you can carry the exact same thing on both of them. These bikes have each got slightly different base weights. This means you could technically carry a little more weight with the GSD because the bike itself weighs less than the Load4 but this also depends on your particular configuration. Both of these models have a maximum gross vehicle weight of 200 kilograms or about 440 pounds. The base weight of the Riese Müller Load4 in the touring configuration starts at 37.1 kilograms, which is 81.7 pounds, and the Tern GSD in the S10 configuration starts at 33.58 kilograms or 74 pounds. And this is a difference of 3.52 kilograms or 7.7 pounds. Although this is different, it's not substantial or significant, but for the sake of this video and comparison, we are mentioning it. Where you carry the weight also matters. So for example, the front rack or accessory mount on a GSD has a maximum capacity of 44 pounds or 20 kilograms of cargo. So this would largely be due to the fact that the rack and accessories are attached via the frame via 2 bolts. There are logical limits that you would also obviously want to follow before you push a pair of bolts to their potential breaking point. This is also true of the co-sprung carrier system on the Riese Müller's Load4 75. The rear rack attaches via 2 bolts that go through the frame and would have a very similar maximum allowance of 15 kilograms or 33 pounds. The GSD's maximum rated rider weight is 264 pounds or 120 kilograms, while the Load4 75 has a maximum rider weight of 110 kilograms or about 243 pounds. Moving on to the primary cargo area of these bikes, the GSD boasts a whopping 100 kilogram or 220 pound capacity on the integrated frame rack, where the Riese Müller has a front load capacity of 70 kilograms or 154 pounds. So now you think, wow, the GSD wins, more weight, more better. But hold up, that's not exactly how that works. We're gonna do a little bit of math. So if both bikes have the maximum gross vehicle weight of 440 pounds, we'll simply assume only the base weights we discussed previously. So if I'm gonna use myself as an example, I would be 6'2" and 100 kilograms or 220 pounds. So realistically, I shouldn't be carrying more than 70 to 80% of my body weight. So a maximum of about 70 to 80 kilograms or roughly 155 to 175 pounds. The GSD's base weight we're using for this calculation, 33.58 kilograms or 74 pounds. We have the total maximum gross vehicle weight, so we subtract the weight of the bike, the base bike weight, the weight of the rider at 220, and we're left with 146 pounds of potential cargo, passengers, or accessory capacity, which would be 66 kilograms. The Riese Müller Load4 75, on the other hand, the base weight of the touring package was 37.1 kilograms or 81.7 pounds, which means the total maximum gross vehicle weight, 440, subtracting the weight of the bike, and then subtracting the weight of the rider, you're left with 138.3 pounds. Potential cargo, passenger, or accessory weight, or that would be 63 kilograms. Now in both these situations, the max allowable weight is within under 70% of my body weight and within the range of what the rear rack on the GSD can carry or the front load area of the Load4 75. So at that point, I could possibly spread the weight onto a front rack on the GSD or the rear rack on the Load4 75 to make the bike feel a little more balanced, but this is at the discretion of the rider. Now with all these numbers for both bikes, that doesn't mean you can simply max out all the given areas at once. You still have to make sure you're not exceeding the maximum gross vehicle weight. And again, this point is crucial. You have to add the weight of the bike and accessories into the total when you're calculating that maximum gross vehicle weight. So with all that information, we hope you can carry all the things you want to carry while keeping yourself safe while you do so. Well, the lower weight on the GSD frame when compared to the Load4 75 means you could possibly carry a few extra pounds on a GSD in theory. Many riders tend to find the front loading setup on a Load4 75 to be a little better suited to bulkier or large items. In practice, the weight difference is hardly worth mentioning, but it's definitely something you might want to take into consideration when choosing what works best for you and your family. So now that you know the basic differences between the two bikes, why might you prefer one or the other? That all really depends on how they might fit with you and your family. And the big first consideration is going to be the size of your passengers and of course the numbers of them. The GSD has capacity only for 2 passengers max, while the Load4 75 has space for up to 3. If your family has a need for more than 2 little passengers, you may have to opt for something like the Load4 75. Now the next thing to think about is for folks looking to carry just 2 passengers is how you want to carry your cargo. Carrying passengers on the back feels a little more like riding a traditional bike. There's no need to adjust your riding style, and the ride feels pretty much unchanged other than the additional weight. Having cargo in the front is a little more of a difference for how the bike feels to ride and might be a little more of a learning curve in terms of handling. It does have the advantage of letting you keep a direct eye contact on your kids, and some people find it a little easier to talk to their kids in this configuration. A front-loading bike can be a little tricky at first since there is actually a linkage between the steering and the front wheel, and along with the steering stop, which inhibits how extreme you can actually turn the handlebars. In practice, you just need to lean a little less when turning, and once you ride for a few minutes, it's quite easy to ride, more of a mental barrier than anything, and most notably, low-speed handling is a little harder, but again, this is fairly easy after a little practice. The long-tail styles of bikes also are very stable since the steering is just direct, just like a normal bike, but there's almost no learning curve, but care should still be taken during cornering since the rear wheel will track a little tighter This means all you really need to do is take your corners a little wider than normal, which applies to both bikes and frankly most longer or any cargo bikes in general. The Load 475 would be best suited to a family with access to a garage, shed, or parking area to store the bike, as it's not really light enough to get up and down stairs easily and will benefit from at least a little bit of weather protection. The GSD does have the capacity to be stored vertically if you haven't got a child seat on it. So it might be better for folks who need to take their bikes inside or don't have a shed or garage space, or even just want to have it stored vertically wherever they have it parked. Another consideration is additional cargo. Besides shuttling around your passengers, odds are you're going to want to do errands on this bike. While the GSD has the same capacity in terms of weight as the Load 475, you won't be able to store it in the same way. There are cargo hold panniers and front basket and rack accessories offered by Tern, but with the Load 475, you've got one main place for everything, that front bucket. Whether it's kids' school supplies, extra groceries, or other heavy stuff, both bikes have different cargo options, and you should think about how you prefer to haul your stuff. Both Tern and Riese Müller are known for their fantastic accessory ecosystems, and if you're looking for weather protection for your passengers or various fun little add-ons to make your rides more enjoyable, I personally wouldn't cite either being better or worse. Both have very well-rounded and solid ranges for each model. Oftentimes, accessories will have multiple solutions for possible problems you may be solving, so it really just comes down to personal preference. Functionally, the largest difference between these two models and brands is we would normally stock a range of Tern bikes and accessories in store, where Riese Müller tend to be done by special order and entirely assembled and accessorized from the factory in Germany. So of course we do have test bikes like this one here available with many features so you can try something in store. But if you want to actually order something, it's better to let us know your specific needs. The biggest factor here is going to be turnaround, which is about 2 months from the date of order to then receiving delivery of your new Riese Müller bike. So keep that in mind if you're actually on a deadline. We always encourage test rides to make sure you're making the right choice if you're planning to ride with kids on these bikes. It's also a good idea in this case to bring them along with you. You're going to want to make sure they're as comfortable as you are on the bike, and trying the bike together will be a great way to make your decision. It'll also give you a better idea of what your rides together will look like, and what the experience of getting in and out of the bike, and which rides are they liking more, or any number of things that you may not have considered until the young people themselves have been on and around the bikes. The thing about finding a bike for you and your family is it's got to be something that works well with everyone, so having everyone there to compare the two bikes together is going to be super important. The best way to know which bike is best for you is obviously through experience, so we highly encourage taking them for a test drive. You're welcome to book a test ride or make an appointment on our website at ucycle.com/appointments. And if you've got any further questions, you can always reach out to us via email at ucycle@ucycle.com. And we hope to see you in store soon. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.